It's important to make the right decisions, like when to go for it on fourth down, or when to kick the field goal or go for the touchdown. It's also important to make the right insurance decisions, too. That's why my office, Trey McAdams State Farm, is here to help you select the right protection at the right price. Our office will make sure you understand your State Farm coverages, so you'll know what to expect when the unexpected happens. With Trey McAdams State Farm, it's easy to make the right call. When you want the real deal, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Proud sponsor of the Tennessee Vols.
Well, somehow Tennessee pulls out the win against the Florida Gators. An overtime touchdown by Dylan Sampson seals the victory for the Tennessee Volunteers. Paige Dauer alongside Jimmy Hyams. You look back to earlier this week, their running backs coach, Darrell Sims, called Dylan Sampson the spark plug to this offense. We saw it in the third quarter against the Arkansas Razorbacks. Saw a little bit more of that again on Saturday night. 3 rushing touchdowns. Most important, of course, coming in overtime, Jimmy.
Yeah, and that touchdown in overtime, we heard Josh Heupel talk about how you really want to try to punch it in. If you had to kick the field goal, you would. But Sampson was able to score. They went to a jumbo package, which they used effectively a couple of other times during the game, in which they do insert 2 defensive linemen up front. They also had the tight end Kitzelman in the backfield as the lead blocker with Jackson Moy, and it did work. But they had a couple of completions in that overtime after Florida missed the field goal to set up the game-winning touchdown. And quite frankly, it's a game that I think Josh Heupel and Tennessee kind of stole from Florida. This is a reversal of fortune. I have seen Tennessee outplay Florida up and down the field and lose. Well, this was a game I thought Florida actually outplayed Tennessee, but Tennessee made some plays. They got the fumble at the 1-yard line. They did a number of things to thwart Florida's efforts, and so Tennessee got a much needed win.
Absolutely, but what brought them to this overtime scenario, of course, was, let's call it an ugly first half. It's exactly what it was. It looked a lot like how it did against the Arkansas Razorbacks, where you have, 3 or so punts. You have 1 turnover in the first half against Arkansas. You've got 2 turnovers in the first half here against Florida. The offense just not able to find its rhythm. You'll hear the team again and again talk about, oh, we're shooting ourselves in the foot. We can't find rhythms. It's these self-inflicted wounds. Okay, well, we're 6 games into the season. How are we still having these self-inflicted wounds? Maybe not able to recognize pressures, but they're lucky to escape what happened in the first half.
Yeah, and why they're starting so slowly is kind of a mystery. I mean, the first 4 games, they outscored opponents 78-3 in the first quarter. Yeah. And now they're having trouble. They didn't score in the first half against Arkansas. They only gained 76 yards. Didn't score in the first half against Florida, gained 130 yards. No. They had a nice opening drive, and then Nico fumbles it.
Right.
And so that nicks that drive. So they have really struggled. And most of the time on these possessions where they don't convert, it's a penalty, it's a sack, or in a couple of cases, it's turnovers.
Yeah.
And so, they kind of got desperate going for 4th and 1 on their own 10 in the first half. But yeah, this offense is not clicking as it needs to if they want to be a college football playoff team. They did do just enough to beat Florida, but boy, Florida shot itself in the foot multiple times as well.
Yeah, they did. I mean, we look at Nico Imaliava. We talked to Josh Heupel after the game in that press conference. I asked him, what's the reason for Nico taking all these sacks? It's another game where he has 2 or 3 sacks, and Heupel will say all 11 people have to be working at the same time. A lot of the time, too, it felt that he stayed in the pocket too long, waited too long to scramble, and it's either a shoelace tackle that comes up for a sack, or he just straight up is sacked. Maybe what's concerning about him not wanting to dump the ball off or throw it away sooner?
Yeah, I wonder if that's experience. I mean, he got sacked 3 times tonight. He's been sacked 10 times the last 3 games. I actually thought his pass protection was better tonight than it had been. So I think a couple of them, one of them was a coverage sack. There wasn't anybody open, and he did take a sack, but sometimes he's just got to throw it away and not take a sack. There was a 10-yard sack that he took. He's got to be able to throw it away and live to play another down without taking a 7 or a 10-yard loss.
Yeah.
So maybe that comes with some maturity, but frankly, he's not played that well at his position. He needs to play better. He missed a couple of long balls when he had open receivers. One was Squirrel White, one was Nimrod. But he's got to play at an elevated level. Really, the only constant on offense, and you mentioned earlier about Dylan Sampson, he's it. He had over 100 yards a game. He's got 15 touchdowns this year. He's closing in on the single-season touchdown record at Tennessee, which was set back in about 1929 or whatever it was.
A few years ago.
Yeah, so, but he's playing fantastic. But they got to get more help, and the wide receivers have to. Now, they were open a few times when Nico missed them, but they've got to play better as well. So offensively, and you can tell how frustrated Josh Heupel is, right?
Yes.
When I asked him, do you think you're close in the passing game? No, basically was his answer. And he went through the litany of reasons why they're not that close in the passing game. So they have got to get that fixed, in particular, if they want to have a chance to beat Alabama.
At Wallace Real Estate, trust is more than just a word. It's been our foundation since 1936. Whether you seek backyard adventures or a quiet spot for your morning coffee, we understand what makes a house a home. Our agents are here to simplify your home journey and to lead you through the process, whether buying or selling. With Wallace Real Estate, you're getting more than guidance. You're gaining a local partner dedicated to bringing your dreams to life. Start your real estate journey at wallacetn.com.
Yeah, and it seems, you mentioned Squirrel White and Chaz Nimrod, the two deep balls, one down the middle to Squirrel White that somehow overthrew Squirrel White, who's, one of the fastest receivers in the league. And then the one to Chaz Nimrod, I don't know if this is what you saw, but, he's obviously looking over his right shoulder. The ball's coming to the left shoulder. So it almost seems that there's even still continued miscommunication on the type of play and route that the receivers should be playing. Because everyone's asking, where are the explosive plays that we saw against Chattanooga or Kent State, a little bit against NC State? And I think a lot of it comes down to that miscommunication.
Yeah, and the pass to Squirrel White was at least pretty close.
Yeah,
the pass
it's still
to
a
Nimrod,
diving catch, but the one
Nimrod
that
was just an awful throw.
Yeah.
I mean, he threw it, I don't know which shoulder necessarily he's supposed to throw it to, but he kind of threw it out of bounds. It wasn't even close. And he had an open receiver there. So that's part of the frustration when you set up a play that should be a splash play and then you miss that badly on it. That's one thing that's hurt this offense. And Tennessee several times got the ball near midfield, got the ball in the plus end of the field, and didn't cash in.
Right.
Now, thankfully for Tennessee's sake, they cashed in when they got it on the 25-yard line in overtime. So they did a nice job with that. They looked like a good offense at that point. But this was a game that they could easily have lost. And then Florida ties the game late. Was it like 3rd and 19 or something like that? And they hit a shot over the middle for a touchdown, which shouldn't happen. So there were just so many ways Tennessee could have lost this. But I give them credit for at least figuring out a way to beat a nemesis. I have seen many times Florida winning a game like this against Tennessee, but Tennessee showed enough resiliency to get it done.
I think that resiliency comes on defense, which
Yes.
I am so surprised with the amount of time that they were on defense, and you only had one drive that looked a little ugly, and it's probably because you're gassed because your defense has been on the field all game long. James Pierce Jr. showing up in the box score. He obviously has been able to affect the game in a number of different ways. It just doesn't have a pretty, hash mark in the box score. Tonight that happens. The game-changing play was when Graham Mertz was extending himself on that 4th down play to try and get across the goal line, but it was essentially a strip sack by James Pierce Jr. that kind of changed momentum a little bit.
Well, Mertz is running a quarterback sneak from the 1-yard line, and Pierce is able to wrestle the ball away from him. It was very close because you kept looking to see if Mertz's knee had hit the ground, and I didn't think it did.
I saw some space, yes.
So I thought it was the right call. That was a huge play for James Pierce, a huge play for Tennessee's defense. And this is a defense that's playing with a boatload of confidence. You get a stop. When you get to the 1-yard line, they're not giving up. They're not just saying, okay, we think you're going to score. They've done a great job with that. Their short yardage defense, 1 yard, 2 yards that the opponent needs, is fantastic. They've done a wonderful job in that regard. And so that kind of kept them in the game. But Florida actually had 4 penetrations in the red zone in the first half and came away with 3 points.
Yeah, similar to Arkansas again.
Yeah, they could have kicked a couple of field goals there. They had the fumble on the 1-yard line. They did have a field goal that they made. But they could have easily led by 17 points at halftime. They didn't. And then they blew it at the end of the first half whenever they had 12 men on the field on a field goal that they made. And then there was a 10-second runoff, so the half runs out. So Tennessee did take advantage of those breaks, managed to get the win, and converted some key moments. They were down, 10-0?
Yes.
And then they got it to 10-10. They took the lead at 17-10, allowed Florida to tie it on that 3rd and 19 pass. But it was kind of a wild game. But Tennessee was able to figure it out. And you knew when they won that toss in overtime, they were going on defense first.
Oh, absolutely.
No doubt about it.
Absolutely.
Well, the other thing we need to mention, Graham Mertz got hurt.
Yes.
And he actually is like he tripped over his own feet.
Yeah, that's what it looked like.
And so Tennessee got a break there because Langway is not as good as Mertz. He's not as accurate. He was 9 for 17, while Mertz was completing over 70% of his passes. So that was the break Tennessee got. It was an unforced break, but it was a break they got.
A tough break that they had was Keenan Peely, who Josh Heupel didn't have much of an update for us after the game, but he was seen on the sideline in crutches with what looks like a back brace. It was a brace that kind of went around his midsection and his torso, but the team was next man up mentality. Arion Carter, again, we talk about him every week and just how he is continuing to make a name for himself. They definitely, showed up and played for Keenan Peely, but I really like the way that Arion Carter played. I think Omar Norman-Lott and Omari Thomas really affected the game tonight as well. So I think there were a lot of areas on defense and a lot of different spots that showed up tonight.
Absolutely, and Carter's interception that he returned, I think, 15 yards to about the 20-yard line. That was a big play for Tennessee. So they did step up. There were a lot of different defensive players that made plays. You mentioned them. With Lott and with Pierce did, what McCoy did, several others that had some good plays. And I'm going to tell you, Florida, they complete a lot of passes. I mean, they were completing coming into this game 72%.
Yes.
And that's second in the SEC, or it was second entering this game. Mertz was at 77%, which led the league. So they have a really efficient passing game. And Tennessee was just able to contain them enough to keep them out of the end zone and escape with a victory.
Yes, it's funny you mentioned that. Florida held UCF to 108 rushing yards a week ago. Dylan Sampson pretty much got just that in this game. But yeah, just a final thought quickly too. The defense being the strength of this team and all your years covering Tennessee football, or especially in these last 4 years, is it a little bit of a surprise to maybe see the defense kind of resurging itself, kind of back to, you always think about the Eric Berry days. Is it interesting to see defense kind of prevailing these last few games?
And it's surprising to Josh Heupel too. We heard him say after the game, he said, this is not typically the way our teams go. It's usually score a lot of points and hope the defense holds on. Now it's score a few points and rest on the defense to make stops and keep you in the game, and that's what they're doing. But this is a very good defense. I'm close to saying it's elite.
Yeah.
I want to see a few more games before I put them in that category. But statistically, they have elite numbers. Now we'll see if that will continue. But they did, I thought, a great job, and they got put in harm's way a number of times when the offense failed here and there. And my gosh, when you go for 4th and 1 on your own 10, I'm still scratching my head about that.
Yeah, I know.
And Nico didn't even remember it when we asked him about it.
Yeah,
did we make it? Yes, you did. And I thought it was funny that Heupel asked Tim Banks, the defensive coordinator. Well, he said, "You all right with this?" I think that's kind of what he did.
The defensive guys and all
but that's almost a desperation thing to me. But you wanted to keep the ball. You didn't want to put Florida in great field position again.
Yeah.
And so Tennessee was able to convert with Deshaun Bishop.
I know, I love it.
Not your starting running back, which was kind of a bold move on Josh Heupel's part. But overall, it was a game that Tennessee really had to win. Look, if they lose this game, you got Alabama coming up, you got Georgia coming up. I mean, this had 8-4 written all over it if you don't beat Florida.
Exactly.
Now there's still hope that you have an opportunity to have a really good season, and the college football playoff is still in front of you if you can take care of business.
Yeah, absolutely. Good mentioning Alabama. That's obviously coming up next week. I'll actually have an interview with a certain VFL about that 2022 game here inside Neyland Stadium that'll air on Tuesday. So make sure to subscribe. Monday we'll have another kind of deep dive into this game. Thursday we'll of course have a new episode on the Rewind. So a lot of great content coming up on Full Disclosure. So make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of it. But as always, thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and we'll talk to you guys Monday.